TCGs, get them while they're hot.
Yeah.
Infinite TCGs. They just keep coming.
They just keep. There's more and more and more.
Riftbound coming soon.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's out now.
One Piece came out. When is that? A while ago?
Yeah, it's a while ago.
Oh,
but Gundam's newer. Gundam, the very relevant anime.
It's classic.
Yeah, kids, remember Gundam?
Remember Ninja Turtles?
8-year-olds, come
Avatar?
bring your Gundam cards.
Structure makers.
All right, so we're kind of TCG old heads, right? We've been playing TCGs for a long time. Me, mostly Magic, but a few others here and there. And you've played Yu-Gi-Oh,
yeah,
Lurkana, Keyforge, World of Warcraft, Digimon, Kaijudo. This one's Kaijudo. That's what that is. We can kind of remember the last time that trading card games were in a kind of equally weird position, which would have been late 90s, early 2000s.
The dark era.
Yeah, the bubble era.
Right.
We started kind of thinking about the parallels to where we're at today. And I don't know, I guess started getting a bit more concerned.
Yeah, we're living in a bubble. And I don't think people are shy about it online. I think a lot of people are also recognizing this sort of resurgence of the TCG bubble, similar to the one from the early 2000s, where we're seeing a lot of games, a lot of TCGs, and a lot of people are chasing that money that they're seeing, the heavy hitters like Magic and Pokemon making right now.
Yeah, and really, like last time around, this was centered around, the bigger TCGs, Pokemon, Magic, I guess Yu-Gi-Oh had just come out, but there were all kinds of additional trading card games that were coming out that they're just gone now, and people don't even think about them. But there's some sort of common trends that we've seen with that era.
To cover some of the elements of what was happening in the early 2000s TCG bubble and what we were seeing with games coming out around that era, there's a few things that we could sort of point to, and that's low production costs.
Rushed products at low production costs, yeah.
Copy-paste design, a lot of clones, loose design rules and holes in design, reliance on existing IPs, and games that are really designed specifically for collectability.
This sort of era, in the late 90s was very collectible focused. And I'm kind of wondering if we're on that sort of cyclical pattern here where the kids that grew up through this bubble era are now the adults that are buying this stuff now.
That's possible.
The thing that really made us want to get into this topic was sort of a lot of the concerning signs we're seeing from Magic. And the biggest one here being these new avatar cards that are screenshot. Everybody's sort of talking about these screenshot cards that are extremely low effort and just putting the Cruel Tutor, right, which just has the face of a character zoomed in on it. But you showed me one that's even almost more interesting.
Yeah, I think I saw someone posting about this on the Magic Reddit, that there's another card game called Weißschwarz. That's how you pronounce it. It's German.
I believe you.
Yeah.
That sounded correct.
That's correct. In the card game Weißschwarz, they also had an Avatar The Last Airbender crossover. So this art on the Weißschwarz card is the exact same art that they use, same screenshot they used for Return of the Wild Speaker.
It seems like what happened is that Nickelodeon is just sending, they're like, here's screenshots from the game or from the show, and you can kind of use them on whatever you want to use them for.
Yeah.
And they're sending them to any IP, any card game that is collaborating with them.
Right. There's no way they collected this on their own, and it happens to be the exact same animation frame, right? It's not even one different, right? A second later in the scene or something. It's the exact same frame.
I think to me, this is just so indicative of these collaborators with Magic. They don't care about the quality of the card game. They don't care that Standard is completely broken or that Legacy is barely functional. They don't care about any of this stuff. They just care about whether or not their collaboration made money.
Which, in all fairness to them, that is all they should care about.
Sure, right.
On their end.
Right. They're not the ones who are making the card game. They're not card game experts, right? But this sort of leaves Magic in this position of being similar to these other card games that are this is what they do. They just do crossovers. Oh, I heard another sort of whoops about this situation is that some of these cards were not on Magic Arena before, and now they will be, but this is the only version that will be available.
Well, they could easily fix that if they wanted.
Sure, they can sell you another copy of the card that has a different piece of art that you'll be happier with, probably. I think what bothers me the most is that last time we were in this huge TCG bubble, Magic avoided a lot of it. Now, Wizards of the Coast didn't avoid all of it. They were the ones managing the Pokemon TCG at the time.
Right. And apparently what was happening is that, Wizards of the Coast originally had the rights to go and publish and create the Pokemon TCG. But after the collapse in 2001, shortly after that, I think it was around 2003, the Pokemon Company created their own U.S. division of their company to go and retain or receive the rights back to their own Pokemon rights, I guess, on the U.S. side.
Take the license back.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then at that point, that's when Pokemon is where it's currently at, where they just own the rights to their own card game and develop it themselves.
In that era, Magic didn't lean on a whole lot of the stuff that the other card games were doing that were bubble era stuff, right? The stuff that's going on now with the IP crossovers and the screenshot cards and the serialized and all kinds of different foils and all of this sort of like collector culture TCG stuff, Magic had been mostly immune from.
And I think that is what allowed Magic to sort of survive afterwards. And that I'm sure that they were still affected somewhat from that bubble, because there's still always collectability with any TCG, no matter what. You can't really escape that. But they didn't emphasize it to the point that wasn't the driving factor for people going and getting it. It was even back then a big deal for you to have a first edition Charizard in Pokemon, because the article that we read said, like, at the time it was $375 or something.
So adjusted for inflation, $375 in 2001 is about $686, something like that, around $690 something. Let's just call it $700. Even then, like, the first edition Charizards are worth more than that now.
A lot more. Yeah, several thousand, I think. But at that time, going from $375 to $100 was a big deal. And to the point that, this article is even sort of like catastrophizing the whole thing and saying, like, this is the end. This is it for Pokemon and possibly TCGs in the collectible market. And I guess what was interesting is, like you were saying, is that Magic didn't really do these things. And Magic seemed to be one of the few that survived. Pokemon ended up still surviving and making it through, as well as Yu-Gi-Oh! And Yu-Gi-Oh! Also, I don't think, really leaned into this like collectible nature in the same way.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Kind of feels like maybe it was kind of like a right place, right time kind of situation, rather than it being like a product designed to take advantage of the era.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a miracle. It's like a freak of nature that, like, it made it through the end somehow. I don't know how it is what it is.
Okay, so we want to talk about a couple other card games that we're seeing now that have some kind of concerning-ish qualities to them. The first one we're going to talk about is Riftbound. So this is the new League of Legends trading card game. And this one kind of falls under what we might consider a project that looks to be potentially a bit rushed to take advantage of the moment.
The biggest point that we're seeing of it being rushed, there's actually quite a few, unfortunately. And maybe we'll talk deeper about Riftbound in a future video.
Yeah, let us know in the comments if you want us to talk about Riftbound.
But it's not looking great right off the bat. Days before release, they had major rules changes, quite a few major rules changes.
They have a patch notes article that came out treating their rules as though this is a digital game. So that's awkward. But
right. And I think that they did a little bit of a disservice by saying that most of this is clarification of rules. And in fact, there's actually quite a few rules that it's not just clarification as much as it's actually having a rule for it. And I don't put those in the same.
The bonus damage, I think, was not.
Bonus damage was
defined
not
at all.
Defined. So damage was not defined at all.
Oh yeah, damage wasn't.
I don't think healing was defined at all. So yeah, stuff like that is definitely kind of a big red flag, I think, when seeing a game that has been going through testing and been in development for what seems to be at least a couple years. Yeah. They had 31 day zero erratas for cards, which again, they tried to soften the blow and say that these are only sort of clarifying things. But in fact, there's actually several cards that function completely differently. And in some cases are possibly broken and might have actually had an oversight in the clarification to make them broken.
Oh, God. To give some credit to Lorcana here, by contrast, Lorcana has errated a single card so far, and they were very apologetic about doing so. They were very concerned about doing so. They thought about potentially just banning the card outright so that they didn't errata the card. Really, the issue with errata is that the card says something that it doesn't do. Is that you have the physical card and it says one thing and it does not do the thing that it says it does. And this, I think, is particularly damaging to games that are new, because new players are going to play the game and take the card at its face value, unless you're a really enfranchised TCG player that understands that errata is even a thing. It seems like this practice is more accepted in Japanese card games, I guess, than it tends to be in American card games.
No, I definitely, because when I was looking into this, like a comparison of this that I think is really interesting is that, yes, Lorcana's had one. In Magic's 30 plus years, they've had only 32 day zero erratas.
Yeah.
And so
in all 30 years.
All 30 years. And Riftbound is almost at that number already. And sometimes they are harmless erratas. But the fact that Magic has been so careful to over those years, and they're almost at that number, is pretty insane. Compared to a lot of Bandai Namco games, it seems to be this sort of culture that has been accepted by the player base that erratas are actually very normal. And I do think in some cases, translation is where a lot of that stuff gets lost, in that as you're translating it, you're missing some of those little design nuances that are really important for game balance. So I do think that that's going to make it more difficult.
Or even function, not just balance, right?
Right, yeah.
In Riftbound's case, they have several cards that didn't have like until end of turn on them. Yeah. It was just like, it just doubles the might or whatever, and that just sticks around.
To go on to like further kind of quality adjustments and quality changes that are happening, is that there have been some card quality complaints online about people opening their packs. There's even rarity issues. So there are some packs that are coming with less rares than they should or more rares than they should, as well as card edges being complained about. Also last year, they completely changed the entire card layout.
That's less common.
Right. After a lot of complaints and seemingly presenting it as this is the final card layout, which was confirmed, I think, at the time by the game director. Now I'm glad they listened to player feedback. So like, this isn't me knocking them for going and changing that because players were like, oh my God, I don't like that. But I think what it shows is it shows this sort of norm or acceptance of like, well, this is what's on the market. Because a lot of the cards basically looked like a copy paste of a Bandai Namco game. Right. And so it feels a little bit like, well, let's just get this out and then it's fine, right? And that's kind of what we're talking about. We're not trying to pick on Riftbound here. Riftbound is just, unfortunately, the sacrificial goat that we're using to describe the issue of this TCG bubble, which is, let's get this thing on the market and let's start making money before this thing pops.
And the last thing to touch on with Riftbound here is that they are also leaning into the collector culture here. When you're out of the gate using that to drive the sales of your product, it's very difficult to know how many people are playing the game versus how many people are collecting the game. The way that they're doing this here is they have these signed card, what are they called?
Signature
cards that have like an artist signature on them, which is something that, in Magic is something that you would do at a convention. You'd sign the cards that you painted to have something to generate a little bit of extra income, considering the amount that you get paid to do some of the card art on some of these things. That's a supplemental thing that artists can do. Where here with Riftbound, they've just, I assume that they paid the artist for the signature so that they can then sell it. And we've already seen this reflected in the secondary market of Riftbound, where one card, Ari, one signature card was listed for around $1,100.
Kaisa right now, I think at the Chinese regionals was like 75% of the meta or something was Kaisa deck. And so I think that's just bleeding in now to the US. And so
75%?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, great. So the game's broken too.
Well, people were comparing it pretty quickly to like Lorcana's meta early on, which was just like red, purple.
Yeah,
and it was
that's
like
true.
Dominating. And so it's like, that maybe not the best, but it doesn't mean the game can't.
Yeah, it can recover.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so last we have, I guess what could just be considered a casualty of the bubble at this point, which is Altered. And this is who put this out?
Equinox. Which made, I don't know if Equinox made it or the designer of Altered made Mysterium. I believe it was the
Oh,
designer
yeah,
of Altered
that's
made
right.
Mysterium.
Yeah, and there was that other game. Seasons was the other game.
Seasons. Yeah. That sounds right.
Yeah. So, at any rate, so Altered, it was the most backed TCG ever on Kickstarter, and they raised over 6 million euros.
Since their first set, they've not done any additional crowdfunding for their sets afterwards, but now they're on their fourth set. They currently have a GameFound going, and most recently announced on their GameFound that if they don't make 2.5 million euros, that they're going to have to basically shut the game down and give everyone of the current campaign their money back. Now, that doesn't sound that bad, but they set the goal at 50,000 euros and basically said that secretly we actually need 2.5 million.
Yeah.
Which it's not an uncommon practice for people to go and set a sort of performative benchmark for a goal to shoot past. Yeah. We've got our thoughts on it, but honestly, their goals are far above what an average Kickstarter is going to need to make. But I think Altered is kind of an example of like the end point for a lot of these card games, right? Where when they come out, they get a lot of that initial hype. They get a lot of those initial sales. A lot of people are speculating. Collectors are speculating. You get, maybe some retailers that are going to invest in some of that because they also go at the hype cycle. And then it slowly teeters out because you just either don't have that staying power or you don't have that infrastructure that's going to sustain those players.
Well, and Altered was attempting to do some really kind of radical things in the trading card game space. They have like QR codes on all of their cards that you can scan and have like a digital collection alongside your paper collection. And then they were supposed to be offering like a print on demand service for you to get like additional copies of the card, and you could like sell the digital rights of the cards to other people. And like, I don't know, this all feels like it was an interesting idea on paper, and then when they actually tried to implement a lot of the stuff, it just sort of didn't work. There's a huge period of time after the game came out that this was just non-functional. And like, I don't know if it was like the best idea anyway. Like the value proposition here is kind of odd, I guess. It's like, I don't know. I think a lot of the value of a TCG is that it is that the value is in the physical good rather than it being in this like sort of digital space or whatever they were attempting to do.
Yeah, it was trying to fix an interesting problem, but one that I don't think a lot of people were asking to be fixed. And I think that what's interesting about Altered is that it was early on in this new TCG bubble. Commander was still popular. But we hadn't started to see this like rise in Bandai Namco games that are kind of taking place, and this rise in indie card games that are taking place, where like there are a lot of new people that are making TCGs and putting them out on Kickstarter, on GameFound, in some cases just launching it, wherever, and trying to get that initial money. So Altered being that first one to come in and look like, they have their shit together. They have a lot of great art. They have their gameplays all there. They had a great digital demo for people to try out. Like they had everything set up for them, but you can't ever like really predict the staying power of something. And you certainly can't assume, and I'm sure they didn't, but assume that all those people that are initially investing in that game are going to keep playing the game for future set.
There's a vast difference here between these companies that are coming out of the gate with a sort of finished product, putting a lot of money into marketing, and trying to sort of like, they're trying to hype cycle their way into an audience rather than building up from like grassroots. And again, I'm an indie game designer. I have probably a bias here towards a grassroots style type of growing of a game, but like if you don't start there, you're not able to take the same kind of small risks to build up to what is actually like really working before you start to like get to that $1 million+ range or whatever, into the multi-millions, right? And if you just sort of come out of the gate swinging, I think that the risk is much greater in that you will have spent a lot of money and failed.
And when you say grassroots, I think it should be clarified. I'm assuming this is what you mean, but I think a good clarification is like, it's not about how much money you're making, it's about how much money you're spending. Like you could make a lot of money, but if you're spending a lot of money and need to spend a lot of money, then that's an issue.
Yeah.
Because the only reason I say that is because like looking at Magic early on and how it started, right, is like they technically did not have a lot of money and didn't expect it to blow up the way it did. But because it did and they weren't expecting that, they didn't then like plummet afterwards. They could only go up and then try to plateau and sustain.
Well, okay, so I think part of the difference here with Magic too is that like Magic had a little bit of time to make some mistakes, and there wasn't a competitor to immediately capitalize on top
that's
of
true.
it. So like it doesn't work that way now, right? If you all these TCGs are running, and if one of them trips, the other ones just trample over them and keep going. So like Magic made some pretty big mistakes early on. That's what led to the reserve list. They overprinted some sets. There were some problems that they had, but they had the capacity to have those growing pains and work through them. And so from my perspective now, I think you're right. It is connected to like how big of a risk you're taking, meaning how much money are you spending in order to take that risk. And also like, games like Flesh and Blood, games like Sorcery, like there are games that are grassroots, keeping things small, making sure that they can continue making the game and making the game better. And over time, that snowball of audience will build up rather than you trying to come out of the gate with like buying the snowman. I don't know what to, a weird metaphor, but
right. I mean, and we've seen this with, like, we saw it with Lorcana. We're now seeing it with Riftbound. We're seeing these games that are coming out, and Altered is a good example of this as well. These games that have these huge amounts of hype that I think gets a lot of people excited, but you just don't know if that's going to actually sustain. I think in particular, it's because these games are very good at marketing themselves to players, but it's very difficult many times for players to understand what it really feels like to play a game until they're feeling it. So instead, it's going off of marketing, it's going off of the hype, it's going off of the art, and it's going off of the promises of that fantasy, whether or not it's actually fulfilled once you start playing it.
Yes. To come back to the meat method, which we have not talked about in quite a while.
That's true. We haven't brought up the meat method.
Marketing, experience, analysis, and takeaways. A lot of these games have good marketing up front, and then as soon as you hit the experience, you're like, this doesn't live up to what was promised. And Kickstarters have supercharged this, right? Is that your Kickstarter overselling the experience that you're going to deliver, and then you deliver it, and it's a letdown. And I think, I don't know, this is a whole nother conversation, but you got to be careful about overselling.
If you enjoyed listening to us talk about the TCG bubble and why it's probably going to pop any moment now.
Right now.
Maybe. Please feel free to give us a little like and a subscribe, maybe a comment down below.
If you want to continue the conversation, you can join our Discord. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.